Collective farming. 19 languages. Drive to the collective farm. 1920s Yiddish language poster. Featuring women cock hose workers. This article needs additional citations for verification. Please help improve this article by adding citations to reliable sources. Unsourced material may be challenged and removed. Find sources: Collective Farming News, Times Newspapers, Times Books, Times Scholar, Times Gster, February 2022. Learn how and when to remove this message. Collective farming and communal farming are various types of agricultural production in which multiple farmers run their holdings as a joint enterprise. 1. There are two broad types of communal farms: agricultural cooperatives, in which member owners jointly engage in farming activities as a collective, and state farms, which are owned and directly run by a centralized government. The process by which farmland is aggregated is called collectivization. In some countries, including the Soviet Union, the Eastern Bloc countries, China and Vietnam, there have been both state-run and cooperative-run variants. For example, the Soviet Union had both kolkhozy, cooperative-run farms, and sovkhozy, state-run farms. Pre-20th century history, edit. Main articles: Communal land, property, and commons. Case studies, edit. Mexico, edit. Under the Aztec Empire, central Mexico was divided into small territories called calpulli, which were units of local administration concerned with farming as well as education and religion. A calpulli consisted of a number of large extended families with a presumed common ancestor, themselves each composed of a number of nuclear families. Each calpulli owned the land and granted the individual families the right to farm parts of it each day. When the Spanish conquered Mexico, they replaced this with a system of estates granted by the Spanish crown to Spanish colonists, as well as the encomienda, a feudal-like right of overlordship colonists were given in particular villages, and the repartimiento or system of indigenous forced labor. Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. Cock hose women with pumpkins, 1930 painting. Latter-day Iroquois longhouse, housing several hundred people. Following the Mexican Revolution, a new constitution in 1917 abolished any remnant of feudal-like rights hacienda owners had over common lands and offered the development of ejidos. Communal farms formed on land purchased from the large estates by the Mexican government. Iroquois and Huron of North America, edit. Main article: Economy of the Iroquois. The Huron had an essentially communal system of land ownership. The French Catholic missionary Gabriel Sagard described the fundamentals. The Huron had as much land as they need, ed. 2. As a result, the Huron could give families their own land and still have a large amount of excess land owned communally. Any Huron was free to clear the land and farm on the basis of usufruct. He maintained possession of the land as long as he continued to actively cultivate and tend the fields. Once he abandoned the land, it reverted to communal ownership, and anyone could take it up for themselves. 3. While the Huron did seem to have lands designated for the individual, the significance of this possession may be of little relevance. The placement of corn storage vessels in the longhouses, which contained multiple families in one kinship group, suggests the occupants of a given longhouse held all production in common. 4. The Iroquois had a similar communal system of land distribution. The tribe owned all lands but gave out tracts to the different clans for further distribution among households for cultivation. The land would be redistributed among the households every few years, and a clan could request a redistribution of tracts when the clan mother's council gathered. 5. Those clans that abused their allocated land or otherwise did not take care of it would be warned and eventually punished by the clan mother's council by having the land redistributed to another clan. 6. Land property was really only the concern of the women, since it was the women's job to cultivate food and not the men's. 5. The clan mother's council also reserved certain areas of land to be worked by the women of all the different clans. Food from such lands, called ndgwge hodywendo, would be used at festivals and large council gatherings. 6. Russian Empire, edit. The Obshchina, Russian, IPA, Pin, literally, commune, or mir, Russian. Literally, society, one of the meanings, or Solskoye Obshistvo, Russian. Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. Rural community, official term in the 19th and 20th century, were peasant communities, as opposed to individual farmsteads, or khutas, in Imperial Russia. The term derives from the word obshchie, common. The vast majority of Russian peasants held their land in communal ownership within a mir community, which acted as a village government and a cooperative. Arable land was divided into sections based on soil quality and distance from the village. Each household had the right to claim one or more strips from each section depending on the number of adults in the household. The purpose of this allocation was not so much social, to each according to his needs, as it was practical, that each person pay his taxes. Strips were periodically reallocated on the basis of a census, to ensure equitable share of the land. This was enforced by the state, which had an interest in the ability of households to pay their taxes. Collectivization under state socialism, edit. The Soviet Union introduced collective farming in its constituent republics between 1927 and 1933. The Baltic states and most of the Eastern Bloc, except Poland, adopted collective farming after World War II, with the accession of communist regimes to power. In Asia, People's Republic of China, North Korea, Laos, and Vietnam, the adoption of collective farming was also driven by communist government policies. Soviet Union, edit. Main articles, collectivization in the Soviet Union and collectivization in the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic. Leon Trotsky and the opposition bloc had originally advocated a program of industrialization, which also proposed agricultural cooperatives and the formation of collective farms on a voluntary basis. 7. According to Fitzpatrick, the scholarly consensus was that Stalin appropriated the position of the left opposition on such matters as industrialization and collectivization. 8. Other scholars have argued the economic program of Trotsky differed from the forced policy of collectivization implemented by Stalin after 1928 due to the levels of brutality associated with its enforcement. 9, 10, 11. As part of the first five-year plan, forced collectivization was introduced in the Soviet Union by General Secretary Joseph Stalin in the late 1920s as a way, according to the policies of socialist leaders, to boost agricultural production through the organization of land and labor into large-scale collective farms, kolkhozy. At the same time, Joseph Stalin argued that collectivization would free poor peasants from economic servitude under the kulaks, farmland owners. The Soviet Communist Party resorted to the execution and mass deportation of defiant kulaks to Siberia in order to implement the plan, see, dekulakization. The centuries-old system of farming. Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. Soviet famine of 1932-33. Areas of most disastrous famine. Marked with black. Trotsky and left opposition supported an alternative program to Stalin which proposed a voluntary tax-based approach to collectivization. Was destroyed in Ukraine. In 1932-1933, an estimated 11 million people, 3.7 million in Ukraine alone, died from famine after Stalin forced the peasants into collectives, see Holodomor. It was not until 1940 that agricultural production finally surpassed its pre-collectivization levels. 12-13. Collectivization throughout the Moldavian Soviet Socialist Republic was not aggressively pursued until the early 1960s. Because of the Soviet leadership's focus on a policy of Russification of Moldavians into the Russian way of life, citation needed. Much of the collectivization in Moldova had undergone in Transnistria, in Chisinau, the present-day capital city of Moldova. Most of the directors who regulated and conducted the process of collectivization were placed by officials from Moscow. Citation needed. The efficiency of collective farms in the USSR is debatable. A Soviet article in March 1975 found that 27% of the total value of Soviet agricultural produce was produced by privately farmed plots, despite the fact that they only consisted of less than 1% of arable land, approximately 20 million acres, making them roughly 40 times more efficient than collective farms. 14. In 1935, the establishment of personal subsidiary farms, LPH, on collective land was allowed in the range of 25-1 hectare. 15. 16. Private cattle ownership existed after 1935, but was severely restricted by decree in 1956. 17. Romania, edit. Main article, Collectivization in Romania. In Romania, land collectivization began in 1948 and continued for over more than a decade until its virtual eradication in 1962. 18. In Romania, force sometimes had to be used to enforce collective agricultural practices. Collective farming in Romania was an attempt to implement the USSR's communist blueprint. These attempts often fell short. By strictly adhering to this Soviet blueprint, the implementation of communism in Romania inevitably created dilemmas and contributions that led to violence. Kligman and Verdier state the violence collectivization emerges then, less as an abhorration than as a product of Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. 1962 stamp commemorating the completion of land collectivization, socio-cultural shaping and of deep problems with how the Soviet blueprint came to be implemented, instead of a gradual and integrated process of moving from one form of society to another. Romanian society in the Soviet orbit was being completely rearticulated, a process in which violence was inevitable. 19. On the other hand, as Kligman and Verdier explain, collectivization brought undeniable benefits to some rural inhabitants, especially those who had owned little or no land. It freed them from laboring on the fields of others, and it increased their control over wages, lending to their daily existence a stability previously unknown to them. 19. Bulgaria, edit. Collective farms in the People's Republic of Bulgaria, introduced in 1945, were called labor cooperative agricultural holdings, Bulgarian. Romanized, Trudovo Kooperativno Zemedalsko Stepanstvo. 20. Hungary, edit. Main article, collectivization in Hungary. In Hungary, agricultural collectivization was attempted a number of times between 1948 and 1956. With disastrous results, until it was finally successful in the early 1960s under János Kádár. The first serious attempt at collectivization based on Stalinist agricultural policy was undertaken in July 1948. Both economic and direct police pressure were used to coerce peasants to join cooperatives. But large numbers opted instead to leave their villages. By the early 1950s, only 1/4 of peasants had agreed to join cooperatives. 21. In the spring of 1955 the drive for collectivization was renewed, again using physical force to encourage membership, but this second wave also ended in dismal failure. After the events of the 1956 Hungarian Revolution, the ruling Hungarian Socialist Workers' Party opted for a more gradual collectivization drive. The main wave of collectivization occurred between 1959 and 1961, and at the end of this period more than 95% of agricultural land in Hungary had become the property of collective farms. In February 1961, the Central Committee declared that collectivization had been completed. 22. Czechoslovakia, edit. Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. This section does not cite any sources. Please help improve this section by adding citations to reliable sources. Unsourced material may be challenged and removed. December 2006. Learn how and when to remove this message. In Czechoslovakia, centralized land reforms after World War I allowed for the distribution of most of the land to peasants and the poor, and created large groups of relatively well-to-do farmers, though village poor still existed. These groups showed no support for communist ideals. In 1945, immediately after World War II, new land reform started with the new socialist government. The first phase involved a confiscation of properties of Germans, Hungarians, and collaborators with the Nazi regime in accordance with the so-called Bean Decrees. The second phase, promulgated by so-called Uri S. laws, after the Communist Minister of Agriculture, in fact meant a complete revision of the pre-war land reform and tried to reduce maximal private property to 150 hectares. 370 acres of agricultural land and 250 hectares, 620 acres, of any land. 23. The third and final phase forbade possession of land above 50 hectares, 120 acres, for one family. This phase was carried out in April 1948, 2 months after the Communist Party of Czechoslovakia took power by force. Farms started to be collectivized, mostly under the threat of sanctions. The most obstinate farmers were persecuted and imprisoned. The most common form of collectivization was agricultural cooperative, Czech, Jednotné zemědělské, JZD, Slovak, Jednotné družstvo, JRD. The collectivization was implemented in 3 stages, 1949-1952, 1953. 1956, 1956-1969, and officially ended with the 1960 implementation of the Constitution establishing the Czechoslovak Socialist Republic, which made private ownership illegal. Many early cooperatives collapsed and were recreated. Their productivity was low since they provided tiny salaries and no pensions, and they failed to create a sense of collective ownership. Small-scale pilfering was common, and food became scarce. Seeing the massive outflow of people from agriculture into cities, the government started to massively subsidize the cooperatives in order to make the standard of living of farmers equal to that of city inhabitants. This was the long-term official policy of the government. Funds, machinery, and fertilizers were provided. Young people from villages were forced to study agriculture, and students were regularly sent, involuntarily, to help in cooperatives. Subsidies and constant pressure destroyed the remaining private farmers. Only a handful of them remained after the 1960s. The lifestyle of villagers had eventually reached the level of cities, and village poverty was eliminated. Czechoslovakia was again able to produce enough food for its citizens. The price of this success was a huge waste of resources because the cooperatives had no incentive to improve efficiency. Every piece of land was cultivated regardless of the expense involved, and the soil became heavily polluted with chemicals. Also, the intensive use of heavy machinery damaged topsoil. Furthermore, the cooperatives were infamous for overemployment. Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. In the late 1970s, the economy of Czechoslovakia entered into stagnation, and the state-owned companies were unable to deal with the advent of modern technologies. A few agricultural companies, where the rules were less strict than in state companies, used this situation to start providing high-tech products. For example, the only way to buy a PC-compatible computer in the late 1980s was to get it, for an extremely high price, from one agricultural company acting as a reseller. After the fall of communism in Czechoslovakia in 1989, subsidies to agriculture were halted with devastating effect. Most of the cooperatives had problems competing with technologically advanced foreign competition and were unable to obtain investment to improve their situation. Quite a large percentage of them collapsed. The others that remained were typically insufficiently funded, lacking competent management, without new machinery and living from day to day. Employment in the agricultural sector dropped significantly, from approximately 25% of the population to approximately 1%. East Germany, edit. Main article, Landwirtschaftliche Produktionsgesellschaft. Collective farms in the German Democratic Republic were typically called Landwirtschaftliche Produktionsgesellschaft, LPG, and corresponded closely to the Soviet Kolkhoz. East Germany also had a few state-owned farms which were equivalent to the Soviet Sovkhoz, which were called the Volkseigenschaftsgut, VEG. The structure of farms in what was called East Elbe until German partition was dominated by latifundia, and thus the land reform which was justified on denazification grounds, 24, 25, and with the aim of destroying the Prussian Junker class which had been hated by the left during the Weimar Republic and which was blamed for Prussian militarism and the authoritarian tendencies of the German Empire, and later Nazi Germany was initially popular with many small farmers and landless peasants. East German President Wilhelm Pieck coined the slogan Junkerland in Bauernhand, Junkerland into farmers' hand, to promote land reform, which was initially pledged to be more moderate than full-scale collectivization. Although the ruling Socialist Unity Party and the Soviet military administration in Germany promised to allow large landowners to keep their land, they were expelled as the LPG were introduced in 1953. After 1959, all farmers were required to surrender independently owned land and join the LPGs. 26. Similarly to the Soviet Union, ultimately most of the land was transferred into de jure or de facto state-controlled entities, with the former farmers becoming employees now of the state instead of the erstwhile Junker class. 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, excessive citations. Poland, edit. Main article, Collectivization in the Polish People's Republic. The Polish name of a collective farm was Rolnicza Spółdzielnia Produkcyjna, agricultural production cooperative. Collectivization in Poland was stopped in 1956, later, nationalization was supported. Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. Yugoslavia, edit. Main article, Collectivization in Yugoslavia. Collective farming was introduced as a League of Communists of Yugoslavia government policy throughout the Socialist Federal Republic of Yugoslavia after World War II, by taking away land from wealthy pre-war owners and limiting possessions in private ownership first to 25, and later to 10 hectares. The large, state-owned farms were known as agricultural cooperatives. Zemljoradnik Zadruj in Serbo-Croatian, and farmers working on them had to meet production quotas in order to satisfy the needs of the populace. This system was largely abolished in the 1950s. See, Law of 23 August 1945 with amendments until 1 December 1948. 34. Better source needed. China, edit. Main articles, People's Commune, Production Brigade, and Production Team, China. At the end of the land reform movement, individual families in China owned the land they farmed, paid taxes as households, and sold grain at prices set by the state. 35. 109 Rural collectivization began soon after the CCP announced its 1953 general line for the transition to socialism. 36. Over the next 6 years, collectivization took several incrementally progressing forms, mutual aid groups, primitive cooperatives, and people's communes. 36. As London School of Economics and Political Science Professor Lin Chun notes, researchers agree that communization proceeded on a largely voluntary basis that avoided both the violence and sabotage that occurred during the Soviet collectivization. 36. Like Professor Barry Norton, she observes that China's collectivization proceeded smoothly in part because, unlike the Soviet experience, a network of state institutions already existed in the countryside. 36. Similarly, Professor Edward Friedman describes China's collectivization process as a miracle of miracles. 37. During 1954–1955, farmers in many areas began pooling their land, capital resources, and labor into beginning-level agricultural producers' cooperatives, Juyi Nonjai Hezuosh. 35. 109. In the complex system of beginning-level agricultural producers' cooperatives, farmers received a share of the harvest based on a combination of how much labor and how much land they contributed to the cooperative. 35. 109–110. By June 1956, over 60% of rural households had been collectivized into high-level agricultural producers' cooperatives, Gaoji Nonjai Hezuosh, a structure that was similar to Soviet collective farming via kolkhozy. 35. 110. In these cooperatives, tens of households pooled land and draft animals. 35. 110. Adult members of the cooperative were credited with work points based on how much labor they had provided at which tasks. 35. 110. At the end of the year, the collective deducted taxes and fixed-price sales to the state, and the cooperative retained seed for the next year as well as some investment and welfare funds. 35. 110. The collective then distributed to the households the remainder of the harvest and some of the money received from sales to the state. 35. 110. The Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF distribution was based partly on work points accrued by the adult members of a household, and partly at a standard rate by age and sex. 35. 110. These cooperatives also lent small amounts of land back to households individually on which the households could grow crops to consume directly or sell at market. 35. 110–111. Apart from the large-scale communization during the Great Leap Forward, high-level agricultural producers collective were generally the dominant form of rural collectivization in China. 35. 111. During the Great Leap Forward, the Mao Zedong-led Communist Party rapidly converted the Chinese economy to a socialist society through rapid industrialization and large-scale collectivization. 38. Later, the country was hit by massive floods and droughts. This, combined with the usage of severely flawed policies of Lysenkoism and the Four Pests campaign, caused the Great Chinese Famine of 1959, where nearly 30 million people died of hunger. The party officially blamed floods and droughts for the famine. However, it was clear to the party members at the party meetings that famine was caused mostly by their own policies. 39. Recent studies also demonstrate that it was career incentives within the Politburo system as well as political radicalism that led to the Great Famine. 40. Collectivization of land via the commune system facilitated China's rapid industrialization through the state's control of food production and procurement. 41. This allowed the state to accelerate the process of capital accumulation, ultimately laying the successful foundation of physical and human capital for the economic growth of China's reform and opening up. 41. During the early and middle 1950s, collectivization was an important factor in the major change in Chinese agriculture during that period, the dramatic increase in irrigated land. 35. 111. For example, collectivization was a factor that contributed to the introduction of double cropping in the South, a labor-intensive process which greatly increased agricultural yields. 35. 116. Both land reform movement and collectivization largely left in place the social systems in the ethnic minority group areas of Chinese Central Asia and Zomia. 35. 118. These areas generally underwent collectivization in the form of agricultural producers' cooperatives during winter of 1957 through 1958, having skipped the small peasant landholder stage that had followed land reform elsewhere in China. 35. 122. Central Tibet was under the joint administration of the People's Liberation Army and the Dalai Lama's theocracy until 1959, and consequently did not experience land reform or collectivization until 1960 in agricultural areas and 1966 in pastoral areas. 35. 119. After the death of Mao Zedong, Deng Xiaoping reformed the collective farming method. From this time, nearly all Chinese crops began to blossom, not just grain. The reform included the removal of land from rich landowners for use of agricultural land for peasants, but not ownership. This policy increased production and helped reverse the effects of the Great Leap Forward. The two main reasons why China succeeded was because 1. The government chose to make gradual changes, which kept the monopoly of the Chinese Communist Party, and 2. Because the reform process began from the bottom and later expanded to the top. Throughout the reform process, the Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. Communist Party reacted positively to the bottom-up reform initiatives that emerged from the rural population. Deng Xiaoping described the reform process as fording the river by feeling for the stones. This statement refers to the Chinese people who called for the reforms they wanted by placing the stones at his feet, and he would then just approve the reforms the people wanted. The peasants started their own household responsibility system apart from the government. After Chinese trade was privately deemed successful, all Deng had to do was approve its legalization. This increased competition between farmers domestically and internationally, meaning the low-wage working class began to be known worldwide, increasing the Chinese FDI. 42. A 2017 study found that Chinese peasants slaughtered massive numbers of draft animals as a response to collectivization, as this would allow them to keep the meat and hide, and not transfer the draft animals to the collectives. 43. The study estimates that the animal loss during the movement was 12 to 15%, or 7.4-9.5 million dead. Grain output dropped by 7% due to lower animal inputs and lower productivity. 43. Mongolia, edit. Main article, Nigdal. North Korea, edit. Main article, Agriculture in North Korea. In the late 1990s, the collective farming system collapsed under a strain of droughts. Estimates of deaths due to starvation ranged into the millions, although the government did not allow outside observers to survey the extent of the famine. Aggravating the severity of the famine, the government was accused of diverting international relief supplies to its armed forces. Agriculture in North Korea has suffered tremendously from natural disasters, a lack of fertile land, and government mismanagement, often causing the nation to rely on foreign aid as its primary source of food. Vietnam, edit. Main article, Land Reform in Vietnam. The Democratic Republic of Vietnam implemented collective farming although de jure private ownership existed. Starting in 1958, collective farming was pushed such that by 1960, 85% of farmers and 70% of farmlands were collectivized, including those seized by force. 44. Collectivization, however, was seen by the communist leadership as a half measure when compared to full state ownership. 45. Following the fall of Saigon on 30 April 1975, South Vietnam briefly came under the authority of a provisional revolutionary government, a puppet state under military occupation by North Vietnam. Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. Before being officially reunified with the North under communist rule as the Socialist Republic of Vietnam on 2 July 1976. Upon taking control, the Vietnamese Communists banned other political parties, arrested suspects believed to have collaborated with the United States, and embarked on a mass campaign of collectivization of farms and factories. Private land ownership was transformed to subsume under state and collective ownership. 46. Reconstruction of the war-ravaged country was slow, and serious humanitarian and economic problems confronted the communist regime. In an historic shift in 1986, the Communist Party of Vietnam implemented free market reforms, known as IME, renovation. With the authority of the state remaining unchallenged, private enterprise, deregulation and foreign investment were encouraged. Land ownership nonetheless is the sole prerogative of the state. The economy of Vietnam has achieved rapid growth in agricultural and industrial production, construction and housing, exports and foreign investment. However, the power of the Communist Party of Vietnam over all organs of government remains firm, preventing full land ownership. Conflicts between the state and private farmers over land rights have grown, with the potential to spark social and political instability. 47. Despite the reforms, however, over 50% of all farms in Vietnam remain collective cooperatives. Over 15,000 farming cooperatives in Vietnam, and almost all farmers being members of some kind of cooperative. 48. The state also heavily encourages collective cooperative farming over private farming. 49. Cuba, edit. Main article, Agriculture in Cuba. In the initial years that followed the Cuban Revolution, government authorities experimented with agricultural and farming production cooperatives. Between 1977 and 1983, farmers began to collectivize into CPAs, Cooperativa de Producción Agropecuaria, agricultural production cooperatives. farmers were encouraged to sell their land to the state for the establishment of a cooperative farm, receiving payments for a period of 20 years while also sharing in the fruits of the CPA. Joining a CPA allowed individuals who were previously dispersed throughout the countryside to move to a centralized location with increased access to electricity, medical care, housing, and schools. Democratic practice tends to be limited to business decisions and is constrained by the centralized economic planning of the Cuban system. Another type of agricultural production cooperative in Cuba is UBPC, Unidad Básica de Producción Cooperativa, Basic Unit of Cooperative Production. The law authorizing the creation of UBPCs was passed on the 20th of September, 1993. It has been used to transform many state farms into UBPCs, similar to the transformation of Russian sovkhozes, state farms, into kolkhozes, collective farms, since 1992. The law granted indefinite usufruct to the workers of the UBPC in line with its goal of linking the workers to the land. It established material incentives for increased production by explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF, tying workers' earnings to the overall production of the UBPC, and increased managerial autonomy and workers' participation in the management of the workplace. Tanzania, edit. The move to a collective farming method in Tanzania was based on the Soviet model for rural development. In 1967, President Julius Nyerere issued Socialism and Rural Development, which proposed the creation of Ujamaa villages. Since the majority of the rural population was spread out, and agriculture was traditionally undertaken individually, the rural population had to be forced to move together, to farm communally. Following forced migration, incentive to participate in communal farming activities was encouraged by government recognition. These incentives, in addition to encouraging a degree of participation, also lured those whose primary interests were not the common good to the Ujamaa villages. This, in addition to the Order of 1973 dictating that all people had to live in villages, Operation Vijiji, 50, eroded the sustainability of communal projects. In order for the communal farms to be successful, each member of the village would have to contribute to the best of their ability. Due to lack of sufficient foreign exchange, mechanization of the labor was impossible, therefore it was essential that every villager contributed to manual labor. Laos, edit. Main article, Agriculture in Laos. Other collective farming, edit. Europe, edit. In the European Union, collective farming is fairly common and agricultural cooperatives hold a 40% market share among the 27 member states. In the Netherlands, cooperative agriculture holds a market share of approximately 70%, second only to Finland. 51. In France, cooperative agriculture represents 40% of the national food industry's production and nearly €90 billion in gross revenue, covering 1 out of 3 food brands in the country. 52. 53. There are also intentional communities which practice collective agriculture. 54. 55. There is a growing number of community-supported agriculture initiatives, some of which operate under consumer forward/worker governance, that could be considered collective farms. India, edit. In Indian villages a single field, normally a plot of 3 to 5 acres, may be farmed collectively by the villagers, who each offer labor as a devotional offering, possibly for 1 or 2 days per. Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. Cropping season. The resulting crop belongs to no one individual, and is used as an offering. The labor input is the offering of the peasant in their role as priests. The wealth generated by the sale of the produce belongs to the gods and hence is apaurusha or impersonal. Shramakti, labor, contributed as devotional offering, is the key instrument for generation of internal resources. The benefits of the harvest are most often redistributed in the village for common good as well as individual need, not as loan or charity, but as divine grace, praised. The recipient is under no obligation to repay it and no interest need be paid on such gifts. Citation needed. Israel, edit. Collective farming was also implemented in kibbutzim in Israel, which began in 1909 as a unique combination of Zionism and socialism known as labor Zionism. The concept has faced occasional criticism as economically inefficient and over-reliant on subsidized credit. 56. A lesser-known type of collective farm in Israel is moshav shitufi, lit collective settlement, where production and services are managed collectively, as in a kibbutz, but consumption decisions are left to individual households. In terms of cooperative organization, moshav shitufi is distinct from the much more common moshav, or moshav ofdim, essentially a village-level service cooperative, not a collective farm. In 2006 there were 40 moshavim shitufim in Israel, compared with 267 kibbutzim. 57. Collective farming in Israel differs from collectivism in communist states in that it is voluntary. However, including moshavim, various forms of collective farming have traditionally been and remain the primary agricultural model, as there are only a small number of completely private farms in Israel outside of the moshavim. Mexico, edit. In Mexico the ejido system provided poor farmers with collective use rights to agricultural land. Canada and United States, edit. The Anabaptist Hutterites have farmed communally since the 16th century. Most of them now live on the Canadian prairies and the northern Great Plains of the United States, as well as in southern Ontario in Canada. 58. Until recently Western Canada had a centralized wheat board where farmers were usually obligated to sell their wheat to the province which sold the product at a high collective price. Ontario currently has a milk board which obliges most milk producers to sell their milk to the province at a regulated quality and price. Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. A movement of voluntary collective farming started in 2008 in the Research Triangle under the name of Crop Mob. The idea spread throughout the United States and less than 10 years later this particular type of incidental, spontaneous, social media-driven collective farming was reported in over 70 places. 59. In popular culture, edit. In the 2021 Telugu film Srikaram, the main protagonist encourages people for a community farming. The 1929 Soviet film The General Line features Martha and a group of peasants organizing a kolkhoz. The film began production as a promotion of the Trotskyist left opposition viewpoint on collectivization. After the rise of Joseph Stalin and expulsion of his rival Leon Trotsky, it was heavily re-edited into the pro-Stalinist film The Old and the New. The 1930 Soviet-Ukrainian film Earth features a peasant encouraging his village in the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic to embrace collectivization, which they do after he is killed by kulaks. See also, edit. Camphil Movement Special Education. Dekulakization Political repression of prosperous peasants, kulaks, in the USSR, 1929–1932. Work Unit Danwir, a state institution of employment and political organization in China. References, edit. 1. Definition of collective farm in the New Shorter Oxford English Dictionary, Clarendon Press, Oxford. 1993. 2. Arksdell, James, ed. 1981. The Indian Peoples of Eastern America, a documentary history of the sexes. New York, Oxford University Press. pp. 110–111. 3. Arksdell 1981, p. 111. 4. Trigger 1969, p. 28. 5. A.B. Stites 1905, pp. 71–72. 6. A.B. Johansen 1999, p. 123. 7. Kemp, Tom, the 14th of January, 2014. Industrialization in the Non-Western World. Routledge. pp. 150. ISBN 978-1-317-90133-4. 8. Fitzpatrick, Sheila, the 22nd of April, 2010. The Old Man. London Review of Books. 32, 8. ISSN 0260 9592. 9. Mandel 1995, p. 59. 10. Daniels, Robert V. The 1st of October, 2008. The Rise and Fall of Communism in Russia. Yale University Press. p. 195. ISBN 978-0-300-13493-3. Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. 11. Rubenstein, Joshua, 2011. Leon Trotsky, A Revolutionary's Life. New Haven, Yale University Press. p. 161. ISBN 978-0-300-13724-8. 12. Richard Overy, Russia's War, 1997. 13. Eric Hobsbawm, Age of Extremes, 1994. 14. Smith, Hedrick, 1976. The Russians. New York, Quadrangle / New York Times Book Company. p. 201. ISBN 9780812905212. OCLC 1014770553. 15. In Russian, the 12th of December, 2022, retrieved the 2nd of June, 2024. 16. Tarkhanov, O, the 29th of January, 2022. The Agricultural Sphere of Production in the USSR, from the Practice of Socialism to the Farmstead and the Market. National Security and Strategic Planning. 2021, 438-58 10.37468/230714002022202143858. ISSN 2307-1400. 17 carat, in Russian, the 12th of December, 2022, retrieved the 2nd of June, 2024. 18 carat Osiris and D. Gavrilescu, Restructuring of Farms and Agricultural Systems in Romania, in J. Swinin, A. Buckwell, and E. Mathiges, eds, Agricultural Privatization, Land Reform and Farm Restructuring in Central and Eastern Europe, Ashgate, Aldershot, UK, 1997. 19 carat A. B. Kligman, G., and Verdier E. K. 2011. Peasants Under Siege, The Collectivization of Romanian Agriculture, 1949–1962. Princeton University Press. 20 carat, 9525.4.1945. 23. October, 2023. Archived from the original on the 23rd of October, 2023. Retrieved the 23rd of October, 2023. 21 carat Ivan T. Berend, The Hungarian Economic Reforms 1953–1988, Cambridge, Cambridge University Press, 1990. 22 carat Nigel Swain, Collective Farms Which Work, Cambridge, Cambridge University Press, 1985. 23 carat Klaukova, Jarka, January, 2002. Czech Agricultural Sector, Organizational Structure and its Transformation, PDF. 24 carat J. Adolf le Mo Jezehen, le Mo Object, Plakat Volksentscheid über Enteignungen. 25 carat J. Adolf le Mo Jezehen, le Mo Object, Plakat Bodenreform. 26 carat Naimark, Norman M. 1995. The Russians in Germany, A History of the Soviet Zone of Occupation. 1945–1949. Cambridge, Belknap Press. pp. 86, 164166. 27 carat Hintergrund, Die Bodenreform von 1945. Faz.net. 28 carat J. Adolf le Mo Jezehen, le Mo Kapitel, Anfang der Planwirtschaft, in German. 29 carat DDR Geschichte, Bodenreform und Gründung von LPG, in German. The 29th of January, 2021. 30 carat Friedrich II. Friedrich der Grosse, in German. The 26th of October, 2012. 31 carat Zank, Wolfgang, the 12th of October, 1990. Junkerland in Bauernhand. Zeit, in German. Retrieved. The 3rd of March, 2022. 32 carat Fischer, Fritz, the 29th of March, 1991. Rückkehr nach Preußen. Die Bundesrepublik sollte auch künftig von Bonner US regiert werden. Zeit, in German. Retrieved the 3rd of March, 2022. 33 carat Adelschoser als Kustol oder Trinker Heilinstalten. Mitteldeutscher Rundfunk, in German. 4. December, 2014. Retrieved the 3rd of March, 2022. 34 carat German translation of the law of the 23rd of August, 1945 with amendments until the 1st of December, 1948. Archived from the original on the 17th of April, 2016. Retrieved the 27th of June, 2022. 35 carat ABCDEFGHIJKLMNOP Harrell, Stephen, 2023. An Ecological History of Modern China. Seattle. University of Washington Press. ISBN 978-0-295-75171-9. Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. 36 ABCD Lin, Chan, 2006. The Transformation of Chinese Socialism. Durham, NC, Duke University Press. pp. 78-79. ISBN 978-0-8223-3785-0. OCLC 63178961. 37 The Transition to Socialism in China. Mark Selden, Victor D. Lippitt, Association for Asian Studies. Meeting. Abingdon, Oxon, Routledge. 1982 p. 205. ISBN 978-1-315-62791-5. OCLC 956466048. 38 1. Permanent dead link. 39 Sue Williams China, A Century of Revolution. Part 2, 1994. 40 Kang, James Kai-Sing, and Shou Chen. The Tragedy of the Nomenclatura, Career Incentives and Political Radicalism During China's Great Leap Famine. American Political Science Review 105, No. 1. 2011 27-45. 41 A. B. Pike, Frank N., Hoffman, Burt, eds. 2022. CPC Futures: The New Era of Socialism with Chinese Characteristics. Singapore, National University of Singapore Press. p. 55. Do. 10.56159/EAI.52060. ISBN 978-981-18-5206-0. OCLC 1354535847. 42 How China Won and Russia Lost. Hoover.org. Retrieved 27 March, 2018. 43 A. B. Chen, Shou, Lan, Xiao Huan, 2017. There Will Be Killing, Collectivization and Death of Draft Animals. American Economic Journal, Applied Economics. 9, 458-77. Do. 10.1057/app.201600247. ISSN 1945-7782. 44 XAY does CH Nhar XAHI Min BC, Building Socialism in the North. Go.vn. Archived. From the original on 4 June, 2013. Retrieved 27 March, 2018. 45 TP Chi CNGSN VNVNHOA Trong TTNGH Chi Min V Fat Trin TNC. tapshikangson.org.vn. Archived from the original on 3 May, 2023. Retrieved 27 March, 2018. 46 TNGCC Kun Lai Tai. gla.gov.vn. 47 Property disputes are Vietnam's biggest political problem. The Economist. 15 June, 2017. 48 Working with Cooperatives in Vietnam interview Luc Groot. Small Farmers Big Deal. Archived. From the original on 18 May, 2021. Retrieved the 11th of March, 2021. 49 carat archived at Ghost Archive and the Wayback Machine, is Vietnam Socialist. Via YouTube. 50 carat Lang, Siri. 2008, Land Tenure and Mining in Tanzania. Burgeon, CHR. Michelson Institute, P2. 51 carat Bijman, Jos, 2016. Agricultural Cooperatives in the Netherlands, Key Success Factors, PDF. International Summit of Cooperatives Quebec 2016. Retrieved the 16th of March, 2021. 52 carat La Coopération Agricole, UN Model Entrepreneurial. La Coopération Agricole.coupe. Archived from the original on the 9th of February, 2018. Retrieved the 27th of March, 2018. 53 carat Les Grandes Coopératives Agricoles, ces entreprises franchises en plein boom. La Tribune. 27. September, 2014. Retrieved the 27th of March, 2018. 54 carat Long Oh My. 55 carat Camphil Movement. 56 carat Wikislav, Zedlerman, Piesesman, Recent Experience with Cooperative Farm Credit in Israel, Economic Development and Cultural Change, 39, 4773789, July 1991. 57 carat Statistical Abstract of Israel, Central Bureau of Statistics, Jerusalem, 2007. 58 carat The Hutterian Brethren. University of Alberta. Archived from the original on the 27th of September, 2012. Retrieved the 6th of October, 2013. 59 carat Nosowitz, Dan, the 7th of December, 2016. What is a crop mob, and should you join one? Modern Farmer. Retrieved the 9th of January, 2023. Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF. Sources, edit. FAO Production, 1986, FAO Trade Volume 40, 1986. Conquest, Robert, The Harvest of Sorrow, Soviet Collectivization and the Terror Famine, 1986. Johann Zen, Bruce E., ed. 1999. The Encyclopedia of Native American Economic History. Westport, C.T., Greenwood Press. Mandel, Ernest, 1995. Trotsky as Alternative. London, Verso Books. ISBN 978-1859840856. McHenry, Dean E. Jr. December 1977, Peasant Participation in Communal Farming, The Tanzanian Experience in African Studies Review, Volume 20, No. 3, Peasants in Africa, pp. 43-63. Stites, Sarah Henry, 1905. Economics of the Iroquois. Lancaster, Pennsylvania, The New Era. Printing Company. Trigger, Bruce G. 1969. The Huron Farmers of the North. New York, Holt, Reinhardt and Winston. ISBN 9780030795503. Yaja, Roger, July 1982, Demography and Development Policy in Tanzania in the Journal of Developing Areas, Volume 16, No. 4, pp. 489510. External links, edit. Stalin and Collectivization, by Scott J. Reed, archived the 23rd of November 2016 at the Wayback Machine. The Collectivization Genocide, in Another View of Stalin, by Ludo Martins. Tony Cliff, Marxism and the Collectivization of Agriculture. Kiernan, Ben, 2007. Blood and Soil, A World History of Genocide and Extermination from Sparta to Darfur. Yale University Press. pp. 724. ISBN 978-0-300-10098-3. Categories: Collective Farming, Agricultural Cooperatives, Agricultural Labor, Rural Community Development, Agriculture in Russia, Agriculture in the Soviet Union, Agriculture in China, Agriculture in Cuba, Agriculture in North Korea, Agriculture in Vietnam, Agriculture in Laos, Agrarian Politics, Collectivism. Explore our developer-friendly HTML to PDF API printed using PDF Crowd HTML to PDF.